fascinating story of change your fucking battery pack. When I was in high school, I applied for a lot of scholarships because I was poor and didn't want to have to pay for college a lot. A lot of money for college I did not want to pay. So I applied for pretty much every scholarship that I could find. And in that process, I had to go to some interviews. There's one particular interview I'm going to tell you about. You know how you have different co-ops for different areas with electricity? Well, we had Gaskasage Electric Co-op, whatever. And they gave a scholarship to every school for both a boy and a girl, and it was a $1,000 scholarship, which is quite a bit of money when you have no money. I applied for it, wrote an essay, got picked. I can't remember how many people got picked for interviews, but I was one of the people. Some of my friends did. We decided to all ride up together because it was kind of a couple towns over. And I'm nervous because, first of all, social anxiety is a big part of my life. I don't do very well talking to people. That goes with social anxiety. Let's just leave it at social anxiety. I'm sitting in the waiting room, just kind of like hoping that I don't make a complete ass of myself. And I found a comic book because, well, I was big into comic books in high school, as if you already didn't know that about me, I was kind of a nerd. This was sitting in the waiting room, and I just picked it up and started reading it till my name was called, because it was either sit there and panic or read this comic book. I go into this interview, socially awkward Amanda. So the first thing I say is, well, I shook people's hands first, like not super jump into things. So I introduced myself, they introduced themselves, and I hold up this comic book that I still had in my hand and go, I was reading this and I collect comic books. Is it okay if I take this with me on my way out? You know, usually this story goes downhill. This was actually pretty okay, because it turns out one of the people who was interviewing me actually worked on the comic book, and she was very happy that someone was enjoying it. So, woo! What happened was, the conversation turned into like a 20-minute convo about comic books and what I liked about it, and just kind of that area. So that was a very good icebreaker, and I say icebreaker, but 20 minutes, that's a long conversation. Then we got into the questions that they were supposed to ask me, and by then I was feeling pretty comfortable because I was like, we just talked about comic books. And I was able to be myself without giving off the creepy vibe that sometimes I give people. I saw these questions, and I don't know how this happened, but it ended up, the guy was telling me, well, if I ever get into electricity later on in life, to give him a call, and he gave me his card and was like, we might have a job for you. I was thoroughly confused by that. But I also ended up getting the scholarship, which is the moral of the story. Read comic books so you will go in, say something that could possibly become very awkward. Somehow turned out to be okay. Why can't I do interviews that well anymore in life? I have no freaking clue. I'm just dreadful at interviews because they make me so nervous. Okay, that is all. The comic book is called Bear Wires: The Adventure of Buddy Bear. It says MIB, and it's Agent Big Mac, and it has George Washington's photo. I don't know.